Yeah, I'd like to welcome you all along to this webinar. Today we're going to be looking at a pragmatic approach to customer experience. So what does that actually mean? What we're looking at here is customer experience is kind of a buzzword at the moment. It's a lot of big companies are doing it, a lot of small companies are doing it. People are investing time, energy, effort, money into creating customer experience programs. But I think it's important to understand what we actually mean by customer experience. Now, if you were to do a Google search on customer experience, you will find hundreds of thousands of web pages with material dedicated to telling you what customer experience is, why it's so important, what some of the other big companies around the world are doing. But there's not a lot of material out there which tells you in a simple way how to actually get started. So today I wanted to talk you through just a very simple basic system that we use at Lean Dimensions International to help customers to develop a customer experience program and to actually get started. So importantly, I think to start with is to define what customer experience is. Now, again, there is any number of different definitions that you can think of around what customer experience is, and each and every company will come up with their own that means something to them. But what I'd like to show you here is our definition of customer experience. So it's a fairly simple definition, but what we want to see here is that customer experience is a holistic approach to influencing customer experience. So it's both conscious and unconscious, and it occurs during every touch point with your company. So let's pick out some of the words there. Influencing. It's super important that you are able to influence the customer's experience. You're not a slave to circumstance. This is something you can actually influence, something you can do about. Important as well is conscious and unconscious. If you have ever called a company because you have a query or a complaint or an issue that you need help with, now the person who picks that phone up, they might be having a bad day. We don't know what's going on in their life, but they answer the phone and they're not friendly. They're very sharp with their tone. They're not necessarily meaning to be like that, but it affects your experience with that company. And so the next time you want to get in contact with that company, you're gonna have a little feeling inside here saying, I didn't like that. And if it's a company where you have a choice to use different supplier or different services, that's going to stick in your mind as well. And that maybe drives customers away from that particular company. So it's really important that we consider that our unconscious actions, our unconscious ways of talking about ourselves as a company, that has a big influence on the customer experience itself. And it occurs during every touch point with your company. Now, if you start to think about the number of touch points you have in a day-to-day life with companies, let's pick one of the big ones, Amazon. Okay, most people will have used Amazon. They are very hot on customer experience. If you have issues, they're very quick to solve them. They're very quick to return your money if you're taking a product back. They're very quick to resolve the issues, but also they put a lot of effort into the front face of the business, if you like, the website or the app. They're constantly trying to drive that experience to make it easier to use. And why would they want you to make it easier to use? Because the easier it is, the more you're going to buy from them. This is why they're also putting in customers who like this also like this. Now, to you as a customer, that could be really useful because it could be introducing you to products that that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily have thought of. But to obviously Amazon themselves, it's driving up their revenue. So if you think of, I've just mentioned a couple of touch points there in terms of getting in contact with them, through web chat or just through their online forms, looking at the website itself. But that's not the only touch point I have with Amazon. If I'm watching TV, during the advert break, an Amazon advert might come on. Yeah, if I'm driving down the road, I might see an Amazon truck. If I'm going to get a cup of tea in a Starbucks or something like that, There could be someone in there with Amazon branded clothing also, buying a coffee. So that is a touch point in and of itself. If they cut in front of you in the line, with a big Amazon on their back, that's going to stick in your mind about, how that company works. So this is why we say every single touch point. So it's, like I say, it's adverts, it's social media, it's people, it's vehicles, it's the experience you have with it, it's the product, it's the packaging, it's everything. So this is why I kind of just wanted to define what customer experience is, because it's important that we all have the same understanding as we move forward. Now, another thing people often look at is say, well, hang on, we've got CRM, customer relations management. Why do we need CXM, as it tends to be known? Why do we need customer experience management? And CRM is typically different kinds of software for managing your customers, managing their information, managing what they buy from you, this kind of thing. But if we just flip back to the slides, there's not many slides in this, by the way. I know that's not always the most exciting thing to watch. But if we look here at CRM, now CRM is typically about optimizing your internal processes. So you are making sure that everything you do internally makes it easier for you as a business and for the customer to do business, to make transactions. Like I said, it can often be software focused, and it's very much with customer facing roles. So you are talking about salespeople, customer service teams, maybe customer quality engineers, those kind of things. People who are in direct contact with the customer regularly. That's where CRM tends to be focused. Now, that's all well and good, but when you're trying to build a more customer-centric organization, you need the customer to be everywhere. Yeah, you need the customer to be in your production, in your maintenance teams, in your delivery or dispatch, as well as your sales, your customer service. Everything has to be revolving around how can we make this customer experience better. So that's where you need something which we call a CX culture, a customer experience culture, where the customer is present in everything you do. So when I'm manufacturing an item, I'm thinking of, right, the customer needs this, how do they need it, what are they using it for, how easy is it going to be, say, to remove from the packaging and to install it, or what's the user experience going to be like. I'm thinking of that throughout the whole of the organization. And so we kind of call this everyone and everything. Everyone and everything gives you this CX culture. Now, when you marry these two things together, your customer relations management and your CX culture, that's when you achieve this idea of customer experience management, because you have the tools, but also the people involvement to manage your customer's experience. And this is what it's all about. If we remember back to the definition there, we want to influence how our customers think about us. And some great definitions of CRM versus CXM is CRM shows us as a company what our customers look like. Yeah, so we see what the customer looks like to us, which is really useful and important. But CXM defines what us as a company look like to our customers. And you may think, well, it's up to them to decide what we look like. But really, because we have this this ability to influence those experiences at every single touch point, we can influence what the customer thinks of us, and therefore we can influence their experience. Now, this idea of a CX culture and a customer experience managed culture, it's something that we call omni-channel. Now, omni-channel sounds a bit kind of fancy, and you will find there is lots of kind of jargon the more you dig into things like this. But ultimately, what it means is, like I said before, everyone and everything. And it's super important to think about those channels, those touch points, which I mentioned earlier. So we really are thinking of social media. We are thinking of websites, adverts, how we answer the phone, what we write in our emails, what our packaging looks like, what our product looks like, or our service, how it's delivered. Everything has to be done with the customer experience in mind. And when you do that, you get this sense of authenticity, this this brand identity which runs throughout everything. And you can imagine for yourself, you know, if you're dealing with a customer, sorry, you're dealing with a company, and then you deal with some other aspect of that company, it's completely different. It jars in your mind, and you think, hang on, what is this company? You know, the sales guy was really nice, but the accounts people, you know, were very difficult. So there you've got the customer experience is not kind of consistent throughout the business. So it's super important that that you think about that across all the channels. The other super important thing to remember about customer experience management, it's absolutely so people focused. We are not, although we will use systems and processes to try and manage and enhance that customer experience, if your people are not engaged, it's not going to work. And when you look at some of the companies around the world who are particularly good at customer experience, the one thing which is common throughout all of those is that the employee experience, so the people that work there, they have a good time. The employee experience is a good one. Now, if your employees are well looked after and they feel supported, and you know, they've got potential for development and they're looked after, that will radiate out to your customers. So it's very difficult to imagine putting all this effort into making a customer experience led company and then treating your people badly, because they are the people who are talking to your customers, or they're the people who are packaging your products and sending it to the customers. So it's really important that if we enhance that employee experience, we build that customer centric culture, then that radiates out through customer experience. And some of the ways you can do this, these are some of the kind of tips and tricks in which you can do. You can empower your employees to be able to put things right. Now, that can be difficult. It can be very difficult in big organizations to kind of empower your employees to put things right. But there are ways in which you can do this. Some hotel chains will, you know, some behind reception, if somebody had a bad night, they can give a free night, or they can give a discount, or maybe a gift card for next time you visit, encouraging you to come back. So showing you that you are valued. Maybe your experience didn't live up to the level that we wanted it to, but I'm empowered to put this right. Now, in bigger companies, there could be small charges that could be waived, small delivery charges. Okay, I can take that one off, or just saying, right, I'm now your point of contact. I'm going to see you through this. That in itself, that kind of personal touch, can really really enhance a customer experience in maybe a time when things aren't going perfectly. And there's that old saying, isn't it, that people do business with people. So even when we're looking at business to business kind of situations, there's still people doing business with people. There's still a buyer, there's still somebody selling, there's still customer services, there's still you know, production or service supply or something like that, but it's all people based. So the important thing there with being so people based is that people want to feel heard and appreciated and understood, and it's very difficult to do that through a kind of through a computer screen. You know, if we've learned nothing from this you know, awful pandemic that we'll be going through, is that level of human interaction that we all need and thrive on is very difficult when we're doing through Zoom or Teams or anything like that. I'm sure you've all been in meetings where, you know, you could honestly, you could have switched off, fallen asleep, and you might not have even been noticed, because we don't have that level of interaction. So we have to try and build that into a customer experience, making sure it's personal, it's people led. And empowering your employees is a really you know, is a really good way to do that. The other thing to that kind of always comes to mind is a quote by Richard Branson. I'm sure most of you have heard of Richard Branson, founder of the Virgin companies, and he was asked in an interview about the phrase about always put your customer first. And you might think I'm going to say that's a fantastic idea, because I'm talking to you about how to enhance customer experience. But his response maybe wasn't what you'd expect. His response was that instead of putting the customer first, he would put his people first. Yeah, so he's going to put his employees first, because he knows that if he puts his employees first, his employees will do the best job they can for the customer. So the way to enhance that customer experience is really to look after your people. So it's super important that we kind of remember that one. So hopefully now we've got a good understanding of what customer experience is, and you know why it's important. It's important in terms of attracting and retaining customers. It's always cheaper to retain a customer than to acquire a new one, and you know, and ultimately it will deliver bottom line improvements. If you can keep your customers, they're going to want to bring new projects to you, for example. So if you're a project-based business and you've done a good job with you know, with enhancing that customer experience for someone, the next project you're going to be the default. I'm definitely going back to that company. So it really does give bottom line results, and that's why there's so much investment around the world in customer experience. But if we get on now to kind of the nuts and bolts of it, how do you do it? You know, like I said before, there's so much telling you what it is. The benefits are clear, but also there's plenty of statistics that show it's a good thing. But how do we actually get started? What are we going to do? So this is something that we feel is a good way of getting this started. So first of all, you need to come up with some kind of a strategy. Now your strategy will be determined by the kind of industry you're in and your plans for the business, plans for where you're going to. So in here you've got to do things like define what your customer market targets are. And what I mean by that is, are you just looking to consolidate your business, consolidate your position in the market? Are you looking at entering new markets? Yeah, as the world evolves, new markets emerge all the time, and is that something that you can see your business going into? Are you trying to win new clients in your existing markets? Maybe take some clients away from a competitor, or are you looking at introducing new products and new services into the marketplace? And really having a good understanding of that will help define what your strategy should be, because you know, there's a different kind of strategy for consolidation compared to going to a new market. It's a different way of thinking, and a lot of it involves a thing called buyer demographics. So who are the people that are buying your products? Now, if we look at business to business, when you look at, say, sort of older, more established businesses like automotive or aerospace, they all have a certain culture and a certain demographic about the people that are buying. And I'm not just talking about age, I'm talking about people who are attracted to that business, people who have been schooled in how that business functions. Now, they will be different in terms of their demographics to, say, Apple, Google, you know, more younger, more technologically led companies. So you need to understand who's buying your product to understand what kind of what customer experience strategy you want. And the next thing you need to do is develop your value proposition. So we know kind of where our markets are and we understand who's buying our products, but why are they buying it? Why are they buying from us? And what value are they getting at each and every single touch point? So what value do they get from that phone call? Or what value are they getting from, say, our web portal, which is easy to order for, whatever it is? What's the value at each touch point? And once you understand your value across all the touch points, you can develop your value proposition. You know, is your value that you're the cheapest, or is it that you're the best, or the best delivery, or the quickest response? What is the value you're bringing to your markets that mean people are buying from you? The next level of the strategy which you've got to define is, what's the level of emotional connection you want with the customer? How deep do you want this to go? Now you might say, well, we want to go across the whole organization as deep as we can, but you need to take small steps to get going. So at this point, saying, right, we're just going to engage with the customer facing roles, or we're going to engage with the customer facing and the planning roles, or maybe we're going to move into operations to some extent. But you determine that level so that you have something with a scope that you can achieve and deliver against. And then finally, it's really important to select a top level metric for your return on investment. Ultimately, the reason you're doing this, aside from the fact it is just a good idea, and don't want to be too altruistic about it, but it's a nice thing to do. Ultimately, you want something on your bottom line. Yeah, that's why companies are investing money in this, because they're going to get something back. So, what is that metric for you? So you need to define that. Once you come up with this strategy, we've got a good place to start. We know where we're going. So next, we have to do a thing called customer experience discovery. Now, customer experience discovery is all about discovering who our customers are and maybe what some of their issues are. Well, definitely what some of their issues are. Now, there are a few schools of thought on this one. Some people will say you bring your customer in the room, okay? Get them to tell you what the problem is. Get them to tell you what their experience is like. And that's definitely a valid approach. What is maybe not so valid about that, however, is do you really want to do that before you've had a good deep look at it yourself? It's about that kind of saying of, washing your dirty linen in public. My personal preference on this one is to maintain your or improve your internal processes first, but with a mindset of let's understand how this is affecting the customer. So we do this by, first of all, we develop a buyer persona. Now, with a buyer persona, you can go super detailed, and that's what most of the literature out there will say. Right, we need to call this guy Bob. He's 45 years old. He's married with 2 children. He plays golf at the weekends. And now we're gonna map Bob's experience with our company. That's a good approach, but sometimes that can be too detailed. If you've got a wide span of a large customer base, sometimes it's valid to say, actually, we're going to map, our buyer persona is going to be based on a specific customer or even a specific industry if we want to. So we can play around at this point and say, right, we want to go quite generic or we want to go super detailed, and that really will depend on where you are with your business and what your specific issues are. But certainly, I would say it's something you can play with. It's something you can choose the best approach for you, and then you'll get the best value out. So we develop this buyer persona either based on people or industries, companies, that kind of thing. Then what we'll do is something called customer journey mapping. Now, again, this is another one where I've been involved in customer journey maps, and they've gone around 4 walls of a room, floor to ceiling, with all this different data on there, and you look at that and you spend days doing it and you think, I have no idea what any of this means. I cannot, it's too much stuff here. I just can't contemplate what it is. So we very much preach the KISS principle. Keep it simple and straightforward. You can always add over time. Yeah, but if you wait to deliver the perfect customer journey map, all you'll do is plan and plan and plan forever, and you'll never get started. So what I say you should do with the customer journey map is keep it fairly simple. You want to define what the scope is. Are we looking at the entire customer journey from the point when they hadn't even heard of us right through to kind of after sales? Or are we looking at a specific buying process? What is that scope? And once you define that scope, it makes the customer journey map much more relevant. So within the journey map, we're looking at what are the touch points in the various stages of that customer experience. Now, we can go quite generic, like things like onboarding, awareness, all these kind of things. Or we can actually look at the buying process itself, if that's what we choose. So when they're ordering, what their order acknowledgement is, when they receive the parts, these kind of things. So you map out the customer experience, which matches what you're trying to achieve and matches your business. So looking at those touch points, understanding what all the channels are, which we said before about emails, phone calls, websites, those kind of things. And what's really important is something called the sentiment line. And it's really what we're trying to do there is trying to understand how the customer is feeling through that experience. Now, if we know we have a particularly difficult ordering process, we know the customer is going to be feeling frustrated or anxious or annoyed. So we can start to create this sentiment line. Now, obviously, it's better if we can use real data from people. Yeah, if you could have a customer come in and tell you, that would be great. And I would say later down the line, that's the level you should be aiming for. But initially, use your own people. They know if someone's angry. They can tell on the phone. They can tell for the feedback they get. You may run NPS and understand that, okay, our customers don't like this specific aspect of us. So by doing this, we start to identify our pain points. And a pain point is say, right, actually, our ordering process is really difficult. Our customers hate it. So you identify the pain points. And then what you can do then is say, well, what do we want instead? What should that look like? What does good look like in this situation? And from this, we kind of create like a future state journey map. What would we like the journey to be? And how would we like people to feel when they're on this journey? And then we can carry out a gap analysis at this point. This is where we are. This is where we want to be. Where are the gaps? And once you've identified those gaps, you've got tangible projects you can launch to actually close those gaps and eradicate them. And that's when you move on to something called customer experience development. Now in this, what we do is we steal with pride from operational excellence. Okay, so operational excellence has some great tools, and one of them is the way in which it solves problems. Now, if you've got a gap, that's a problem. So what we do is we deploy projects to close those gaps. So we've identified the gap in the customer journey map. So now we can deploy projects to close it. We can develop what the problem is. We develop the goal. We give our project teams a criteria. So these are the rules of the game. This is your budget. This is the way we want it solved. But we don't tell them how, because it's up for the teams to work out the how themselves. They can then use any appropriate problem-solving tool. We tend to use a Kaizen approach, but any suitable problem-solving method to close that problem down. What we're also going to be then is defining what resources they need, what training and requirements they have. Is there any infrastructure or system requirements they might need? So what is it they actually kind of need to get this project done? During the customer experience development as well, we want to say, right, it's all well and good doing the journey map, but we can't do that every single day. So what are our measures for understanding how well we're doing? We're putting investment and time and energy in, and how do we know if that's going to actually give us any payback at all? So here we're going to develop some customer feedback monitoring measures. Now, NPS, as I mentioned, we can use surveys, tally charts of different things, customer complaints. There's the stuff that we have available to us, but there's also more kind of tactile feedback. I could tell, I was on the phone, I could tell they were annoyed with us. So bring that feedback in as well, because your people speaking to your customers, they are the voice of the customer for your organization, so they can bring that back in. So it's super important. What you also need to do is create an employee feedback system. As I said before, a good employee experience leads to a good customer experience. So listen to what your employees are saying. Listen to what they're telling you about, how they feel about their being able to focus on a customer when they're doing particular roles. How they feel about the way that job went out. Maybe they saw a box packed and think, I wouldn't want to receive a box like that. It doesn't look like it's packed with any care. So pick up on those employee feedback as well, because like I said before, a great employee experience gives a great customer experience. The last thing you need to do here, though, is make sure you sustain it. There's no point putting in all this effort, doing all this good work, getting everyone fired up and engaged in this, and then letting it fall flat. And we've all experienced things like that. So here we're looking at, all right, how can we sustain what we've done? And again, steal from operational excellence. We can use something called a performance control system. Now, performance control system is basically saying, how well is it going? Is there anything we need to do different? If it's falling off, what can we action to make sure it stops? And some of the things we can do here is we can track our top level metric, our top level return on investment metric. We can look at our customer feedback, so that can be shared around with everyone. Our employee feedback can be shown there as well, so we know Are employees happy? Are they not? You know, where is it going with this? We can also look at the project KPIs there as well. So when your projects are running, we can look at those KPIs, and we can have a good understanding of, okay, that's either succeeding, that one's not, and we can put in place straight away something to make sure that project delivers what it's supposed to deliver. Another thing we can do to sustain this is look at our organizational communication. And organizational communication is super important in this. Remember, one of the aspects we're trying to do is to build a customer experience culture. Now, if we are bad at communicating, we don't celebrate success, then pretty quickly the rest of your organization is going to get switched off to this, and then again it's just going to dribble away, and all that effort's going to be for nothing. So your organizational communication is super important. Any change management process you look at, 𝘾𝙪𝙨𝙩𝙤𝙢𝙚 steps, for example, is about communication. So if we don't have that communication commitment and strategy of how we're going to do it, your results will start to ebb away. The last part of sustainability is looking at horizontal and vertical expansion. So horizontal expansion is now saying, right, okay, we did this with customer A and it was really successful. Can we apply the same rules to customer B, or with a few tweaks? So basically, can we shortcut that process of not necessarily having to go through and look at all the gap analysis again? Is there things we've learned that we can straight away port across? So that's your horizontal expansion. Your vertical expansion is, right, now, why don't we bring this internal? Why don't we go down into the organization? Let's look at ourselves as a customer service team, and let's look at our customers. Our customers in the business will be the production teams, the planning teams. Let's look at what value we bring them. Yeah, we can do this process as an internal customer focus as well as an external customer focus. So that's another really good way of reinforcing the customer experience message to everyone, and kind of sustaining those improvements you make, and becoming customer centric, which everyone's trying to do at the moment, for good reason. The last point on this is that at the moment, this looks like a process. We started at strategy, we ended with sustainability. But of course, this is not a process, it's a system. So once you've gone through one round of this, you go back to your strategy and say, right, we're in a different place now. Okay, we're better here, we've done these improvements. Now, what do we do next? Or the world's moved on, we've got different customers now, what do we do next? So it's a cycle. You go round and round and round this, you never stop. Because the second you stop, even if you maintain your current level of customer experience, someone else is going to do a better job, or the expectations of your customer will be higher. So you never stop on this. It's a constant cycle that goes round and round and round. So that is it in a nutshell. Appreciate that was kind of a whizzed through pretty quickly, but essentially, if you follow that approach, it's a really good way to get started. And like with most things, once you get started, you learn, you get feedback from what went well, what didn't go well, and you improve. But getting started is the key thing. A lot of you will have never done customer experience before, so trying to plan a whole customer experience program when you've never done it before, what are you basing your plans on? You'll make a very detailed plan, and it'll be 100% wrong, because you've never done it before. So getting your feet wet, getting in there, trying some of the tools out, and using the system which I've shown you will get you started. I really hope that's been helpful, and in a few short moments we're gonna open up for a Q&A session, and I'll see you there. But thanks for your attention. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to continue this conversation, maybe if you're watching this on a recorded version, please reach out to me, or jump on our website, askLDI.com, and we'd be very happy to talk more with you about how you could implement this in your organization. Thank you very much. So hopefully you found that really useful and insightful, and a bit of a kind of a look into how you can get started. Taking these kind of small steps rather than trying to be overawed by what it is to look at a customer experience program or customer experience management in and of itself. So I'm going to open up to questions and answers. Do a short question and answer session. So there is a bit of a delay on this, so I'll get to your questions as they come up, and I see that actually one's come up already from Daniel. So what Daniel's asking is, in terms of the full cycle from starting a strategy to sustainability, how long does the development and implementation of such a process take? So that's a great question. Thanks, Daniel. And I think it really depends on the scope. Now, what you could choose to do is go quite small with this. You could even have an internal focus, as I mentioned before. So maybe we're a planning team, and we want to look at how we are servicing our internal customers and what our customer experience is like for them. Now, by limiting the scope like that, you might be able to have some quick wins and actually get some sustainable results in weeks, if not just a couple of months. However, if you're looking bigger scale, so you're looking at some key customers, you're looking at solving some of the issues which are causing them to have an experience which you wouldn't necessarily like, then to really embed sustainable results, it could take you 6 months, it could take you 12 months. So it all depends on that scope. There's obviously nothing to say you can't have multiple different versions of this going at the same time. So your planning team could be working on something, your customer service team could be working on your key customers, and maybe your production team working on this. So it's really it's a very scalable system. So hopefully that gives you some an answer to your question there. While we wait to see if there's any further questions, we ran this session earlier today. We kind of split this across Europe and the US. So we did have some questions earlier as well. So I've noted those down. And one of them was about how do you ensure organizational buy-in during this? Because obviously if you're launching something like this and the organization's not behind you, then it's an uphill struggle. So my answer to that is really what you're looking to do in terms of creating a customer-centric environment and a customer-centric company is you're actually affecting a massive cultural change project. And therefore change management is super important here. And one of the change management models I like is 𝘾𝙪𝙨𝙩𝙤𝙢𝙚 steps. And in order to create that buy-in, it's about creating a sense of urgency, getting the idea out of why are we doing this? What is the need to do this? Creating a vision. This is where we want to be. This is what good looks like. And then communicating that vision, constant communication as well, because if we, if you've been in corporate culture for any length of time, you'll know that there's constantly the next big thing. There's constantly the next next focus that we should look at, and the problem with that then is if you don't constantly communicate, you're bumping down the list, like in the music charts, you just drop down. So you need to constantly communicate, push yourself right back up the top, and also celebrate when you do well. Celebrate the wins. Let people see this is actually being a success, and that way the organizational culture will be formed that this is the right thing to do. This is who we are, and this is how we work. Any other questions coming in? Nothing at the moment, but I'll pop back to some of the other ones we had earlier. Someone was asking about the impact of the return on investment. So, like I said, this is an exercise in ultimately you want something on your bottom line. You want to be a reason for investing time and money in this. And there's some statistics out there from Forbes who actually they said that if you were customer-centric companies, so companies who value their customer, who have customer experience programs, who really kind of put some effort into this, they're 60% more profitable than companies who don't. It's 60%. If you can imagine, you could be 60% more profitable. That just shows the level of return you can get on this. There's also they also stated that brands with like a superior customer experience can bring in 5.7 times more revenue than those who don't value their customers or don't actively work on valuing their customers. So again, these are big numbers. Um, and then 84% of companies who worked hard to increase their customer experience or enhance their customer experience, they reported increased revenue. So it's not, there is a direct link here between the investment you put in and the returns you get. So in terms of return on investment, it's very, very strong. No other questions at the moment. So there was one other one actually from earlier, which which I found interesting, because it's often useful to try and link when you're looking at customer experience, or when you're looking at anything really, is to link this to things that you know and you see in your personal life. So somebody asked about organizations out there who do a particularly good job of this, and what do they do? And one of the organizations is IKEA. So IKEA, a big kind of furniture store. If you go to IKEA, it's not like any other furniture store you go to. It's not just rows of sofas and beds and rugs and things like that. What they've created is an ability for you to walk through, see how how these products can be used in a home environment. You can go in there, you can sit down, you can see where the TV is going to be, so you can actually really feel what it's like, or what it's going to be like to have those products within your home. And you travel through a whole kind of displays of different ways in which their products can be used. They also diversify with things like restaurants and cafes, and even like a kids crash, so you can actually kind of walk through and and switch off to any kind of stresses you might have, and imagine what those products would be like in your home. So instead of just going shopping, it becomes a whole experience. And if you've been to IKEA, it can take a very long time because you're having that experience rather than just a transactional relationship. Another company who do a particularly good job is Starbucks. Now, one of the things Starbucks has done, which is really quite clever, is most companies have some kind of consumer apps at the moment. But what Starbucks have done is they've taken advantage of kind of location-based technology. And you can set up in your Starbucks app your regular order. So this is this is the coffee or the tea or whatever it is that you drink. And with their app now, it recognizes when you're entering one of their outlets, and they can have your order ready by the time you get to the counter. You don't even have to ask. And that's because they realize that they've got different kinds of customers. They've got customers who want to come in and enjoy the facilities. And then also customers who they're on their way to work. They just want to get in, grab the coffee and go. So there's an investment there for them in terms of they might make that coffee and that isn't actually what you want that day. But that's the level of investment they're putting in to say, this is most of the time they will want this and they'll really value this experience and they'll tell others as well. So they're getting their customers to work for them, if you like, on customer acquisition, which is pretty clever. So that was one I want to bring up as well. So if we don't have any other questions coming in, I'll just sort of finish off by saying that you're never kind of going to get anywhere with customer experience if you just look at the mammoth task that appears to be. An analogy I use is it's like asking somebody who's sitting on a couch to get up and go and run a marathon. Okay, you're not going to be able to do that straight away, but what they are going to be able to do is take a walk, and then after a while that walk becomes a short run, and after a while it becomes a longer run and a longer run, and eventually they will run the marathon. And that's how I kind of perceive the whole customer experience journey. You've got to get started. If you wait and try and develop the whole program, you're never going to really kind of get started. So you're just planning and never any traction. By which point your competitors are doing something. They are moving forward, you'll suddenly, instead of standing still, you're actually moving backwards because people are coming up ahead of you. So really, we definitely preach the idea of getting started in a small way, even if it's internal. Get started, and then the benefits will come. So if there isn't any more questions, just like to thank you all for your attention. If you want to continue the conversation, we're really we really want to talk to people about how we can maybe help them in their business to push forward. So if you want to reach out to me either through LinkedIn or send me an email at james@askldi.com, or you can use our generic let's do it at askldi.com email address. And you can reach out to me there, and I'd love to have this conversation with you about how we can support you in your journey moving forward the best way we can. So thanks again for your time and attention, and I hope to speak to you again soon.